Bode, Doyle, hold on a moment. World Chemical Products. Somebody just fell out of a 7-story window. What are you two, some kind of musical act? Oh dear, I didn't see that. I'm terribly sorry. The 6th generation BMW 5 Series, also known as the F10 5 Series. Is it a German Autobahn stormer, or is it too expensive for its own good? Should you care? Why? Let's find out. BMW? Los geht's. Oh. Mr. Franks, we've got a problem.
What?
It's a diesel.
Again?
Yes, sir.
This is your old car though, isn't it?
No, sir, not this one. This is a very rare manual F10 5 Series, and it's a diesel. Okay, alright, okay, never mind, we'll go ahead with it. Right. BMW, Los geht's.
There's a promise for our broken lives, and dawn breaks on our horizons, and we will not be disappointed when we get out of this place. So I'm not disappointed now. We will not be disappointed when we get out.
Welcome once again to Surrey and this episode of Two Jacket Reviews. Today we're in a 2013 BMW 530d SE, which has been lent to us by my friend Alex. So thanks, Alex. Alex. As I said in the introduction, this is a very rare car in that it's a manual 5 Series of the F10 generation. Most of them are automatic. I believe it's an 8-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission, but this has a 6-speed manual, and it does help you to control your speed because this car's got about 245 horsepower, and it does need to be reined in when you're just driving through little Surrey villages. One of the things that you might not be aware of is that for about 15 years my family used to run BMWs, so I'm quite familiar with the way that they work and the way that they feel. This one feels very familiar instantly when you get in it. It feels very much like a kind of a fighter plane, I suppose. Everything's really close to the driver and it's really nicely laid out. So since this is a diesel, I suppose I better talk about diesel engines available in the F10 generation 5 Series. Bottom of the range was a 530d, which developed 143 brake horsepower in pre-facelift form. Then there was the 520d, that developed 184 brake horsepower. Those were 2-litre engines. Very confusing, I know, but that's just the way they do it. There was also then a 3-litre diesel engine, and you could get that in a variety of power outputs. The 525d, that was 204 brake horsepower. This one, the 530d, is about 250, depending on which year of car. And then top of the range of that was the 535d with a completely unnecessary 304 horsepower. Why do you need all that? So in terms of the more interesting petrol engines, there's a lot of them. First of all, there is the 520i, that's got 181 horsepower. Then there's the 523i, that's got 204 horsepower. Then there's a 528i, that's got 258 horsepower. Then we get into some utterly ridiculous numbers. The 550i has a V8 engine, 4.4 litres. That has 404 horsepower, and even more in the post-facelift model. The M5, that's got 560 horsepower, unless you're going for performance pack, it's got 575 horsepower. Honestly, I'd just stick with the 520 if I was buying one of these cars. So what's this car like to drive on the outskirts of London where we are? I thought it would be quite daunting. I mean, it's a pretty big car and it certainly feels very wide. But actually, considering most 5 Series are not even manual, the manual gearbox is actually fine. The throw's a little bit short, but it's pretty smooth. And this car's done 101,000 miles and it doesn't show it mechanically at all. I'm very impressed with that. Because it's a diesel, the clutch is a bit heavy, but apart from that, the steering's nice and light, and it's got all-round parking sensors, so it's not as daunting to pilot around urban areas as you might think. So we're currently travelling on the Old Kingston bypass, which is the A3, and last night I came up this way as well. I picked the car up from southwest London, and it's very composed. I'm doing about 1,500 RPM in the 5th gear, and we're doing about 45 miles per hour, and it's just smooth, effortless, and I think I'm even getting half decent economy. There's so much power in reserve as well. I mean, I don't think you need this engine. I think the 518d or the 520d are perfectly adequate for anyone who doesn't drive on an autobahn every day. So, the BMW 5 Series of the F10 generation's got a very good list of standard equipment. We've got cruise control, which is the clearest system I think I've ever used. We've got heated seats, dual zone climate control, leather upholstery. We've got the Idrive, and we've got these projector LED headlamps, which are beautiful. They're called the angel eyes on BMWs. One thing you don't get, which is really strange, is automatic folding mirrors. You get keyless entry, but you don't get folding mirrors. So this is actually an SE car, although it's an SE efficient dynamics because the particular package it's fitted to the car, and this is the base model. When this car was first introduced in 2010, there weren't really trim levels. It was just everything was an SE, and then you added options to it. And my gosh, the options are expensive. If you wanted folding rear seats, it was about £1,000, and I think that should be standard. The base price of the cheapest diesel model was around £30,000, but I reckon most 5 Series when they were new left the showroom a sticker price of well over £40,000. So let's talk about fuel economy. I've not driven this car particularly for very long, but the trip computer's telling me that Alex gets 38.5 miles per gallon. The official figures for 530d say it's about 45. I reckon he does a lot of his driving in stop-start traffic. This car does have stop-start. And if you were driving, I don't know, on a motorway a lot to and from your important business meetings, then you probably would get close to that. But if you stick your foot down too hard, you could expect that to plummet right down to the low 20s. One of the standard features in this car that I really, really like is the automatic driving mode selector. And we've got Comfort, Sport and Eco Pro mode. I'm in Eco Pro mode and I've still got plenty of power, but I can feel the car is just sort of holding back a little bit because, you know, here we are at A3 in Roehampton and we don't need to go particularly fast, but we do need to have good economy. And this is really nice to be able to select what you want, although this car is not fitted with the adjustable dampers that a lot of 5 Series did have. And that's kind of a shame because when you want to drive a performance car like this, you want to have all the options right at your fingertips. So one of the things Mr. Franks has been saying to me is that this is a really comfortable car for filming, and he's currently seated in his contoured leather armchair with his heated seat on, and he is wafting along in pure luxury. The 5 Series used to be known for becoming quite a firm ride, but in this F10 generation, even without the comfort adjustable dampers, it just kind of cruises along really nicely, and the whole feeling is one of just club class travel. So let's talk about the ride and handling of this car. Obviously, you know, the BMW is the ultimate driving machine. The steering is a bit of a disappointment, to be honest. It's far too light, rather like the Audi Q3 that I reviewed last month. It's not as feelsome as you'd expect, I mean, my Lady Wife's MG3, which cost £10,000 new, has got more feelsome steering than this. Mind you, it's perfectly fine. It's direct enough. The handling, though, is brilliant. I mean, the rear-wheel drive chassis, you can very much feel that in evidence, and there's not much body roll. The car feels very composed in all situations, and I think if you're doing 120 miles an hour on the Autobahn, probably flashing your headlights behind someone's back, then like nothing could happen to you and you were invincible. One of the things though that is starting to tire me slightly, and I'll talk more about this later, is the accelerator pedals offset to the right, and I feel a little bit twisted. So if you are on a very long Autobahn journey, you're going to want to use the cruise control, prevent yourself getting cramp.
Not yet sung. We're not worrying about the future, and we're not guilty about the past. We're pressing on together. It's joy that will outlast these sorrows. It's not as if we don't have to deal with our shortcomings. It's not as if we don't have to wipe away the tears.
Wow, this is such a nice car. I think Tweed Jacket Reviews has finally arrived. We've hit the big league, Mr. Franks. Anyway, let's go and look at what delights lie in the boot. So, one thing I've found a bit confusing about this car is that it's absolutely enormous, as you'll see from some of the shots we've been doing. The boot, I mean, it looks reasonably large, but if you look at the capacity figures, it's only 520 litres. And that's actually smaller than the one on my Seat Toledo, which is a much smaller car overall. And in comparison with the rest of the cars of this class, that's not very impressive. Also, unless you paid extra for folding rear seats, you don't get them. This car doesn't have them. And I think that is a bit inexcusable on a car that costs well over £35,000. So if I take a seat in the rear, which is very easy to do in this car, this is my driving position. I'm 5'11", and my knee room is very generous indeed. Also got lots of headroom, although it's sloping roof line in this car. There is a nice big armrest in here. We've got a compartment here for storing an iPad and some cup holders. Overall, this lovely beige leather interior, which was standard on the 5 Series any trim, is really comfortable, feels very high quality, and this is a place where you want to be chauffeur driven, I think. Unlike so many of the cars which I review, I can't fault any of the fixtures and fittings in this back seat at all. The doors have nice soft plastic, even on the bottom. This is all trimmed in leather, lovely chrome door handle. We've got climate control vents here. Got a 12-volt socket in there too. It might be nice to have a USB, but this car was introduced in 2010, so maybe that wasn't something that was standard. So if we now move into the front, after all, BMWs are supposed to be the ultimate driving machine, so this should be really, really nice. And it is. Now, this is a very rare 5 Series manual car, so it's got a very weird driving position. My foot is right up against the bulkhead here. The clutch is where I expect the brake pedal to be, and so you've got to drive a bit twisted. The automatics don't have this problem. It's a little bit strange given the German passion for ergonomics. Mind you, everything else is really nice. Everything falls really easily to hand. Here's the BMW Idrive controller just there. Gear lever. This is like a Mazda MX-5, very short throw, nice and convenient. Got the driving mode selector here. The steering wheel feels nice and very high quality. The buttons are very easy to see. They're lit up at night. And all the minor controls, the headlight switch, the mirror switch and the window switches, they all feel really nice to touch, and they're all exactly where you expect them to be. In terms of visibility, every car does come with standard front and rear parking sensors, and I'd go above that and say you should find a car which has the optional reversing camera, because the rear view is very restricted, there's no rear wiper, and it's a very, very long car. So just be really careful when manoeuvring. This particular car's got a few battle scars on it already. So let's look at the BMW Idrive system, shall we? Now, this was first introduced on the 7 Series back in about 2001, and it was known for being absolutely terrible at the time. I'm pleased to say that even since the 2-3 Series Tourings that I used to drive, this has been massively improved, and it looks very similar to the one we find today, although this doesn't have Apple CarPlay because this wasn't invented at the time. But everything is so easy to see, you don't have to take your eyes off the road very much, and this particular car is fitted with satellite navigation too, although it's probably a bit out of date. One thing I don't like is how big this centre console is, and they've even tried to sort of slim it down by putting an electronic handbrake in the car. I don't particularly like these, but it seems to work quite well. The only thing is I feel quite hemmed in. It's so high that sometimes when you're changing gear, it's just a little bit frustrating trying to sort of select the right one. I've crunched the gears twice on the way to this filming review today. Sorry, Alex. I thought that this particular car, the F10 5 Series, wouldn't come with one-touch indicators, but it does. And they are a right pain. I don't know why BMW do this. I've been doing it for years, and it just makes everyone else around you totally confused as to where you're going. Now, BMW drivers are not known for correct signalling anyway, and to make it more difficult for them, I just don't understand why you do that. Why? That apart, the rest of the controls here are very clear and easy to use. The dials are just really, really nice. And this particular car is an efficient dynamics model, and it even shows you how much battery power that the car is actually accumulating through driving. That's a really nice feature. One of the other things that's really clear about this car is the dual zone climate control panel here. Unlike, say, a Mercedes of the same era, the temperature is controlled by these two knobs, and it's so much easier to use. It's very intuitive. The buttons are not too cluttered, and when you're just driving along, you don't have to think about what you're doing. You just literally turn like that, and everything is at your fingertips. It's really nice and safe. In terms of practicality, there's a big lidded storage compartment in the middle here. It's got USB and aux-in ports. The door bins are quite small. I don't really understand that. It's a very big car. Although the glove box is a good size, I think you can fit your secret mission documents in there just fine, although they have to be quite long and thin ones. There's also an illuminated, what used to be called an ashtray, but I don't know what you call that now. It's somewhere to deposit random coins from all your foreign adventures. So then, is the F10 BMW 5 Series the ultimate driving machine, or just something that lurks in your rear view mirror? Well, it is certainly really nice to drive. It's much more comfortable than you'd imagine, and it really has this wonderful imperious quality about it. And if you're that sort of person who wants to get on with life, then really nothing else will do. It was pretty expensive when it was new, but these days they're pretty reasonably priced just because they sold so many of them. Oh, excuse me. There's an anti-handling device, a dummy cap, clockwise. Thank you for watching this episode of Tweed Jacket Reviews. My name is Joseph Lloyd. I'm an independent vehicle consultant. I find cars for people. Please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to do that. Don't forget to like this video and to leave a comment below. If you wish me to source a car for you, I'd love to do that. My website is www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk. Please use the Contact Me page on my website to get in touch. I've got a Facebook page as well. It's facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. Thank you. amid the sound of silence, and in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never share. No one dare disturb the will of silence. You know that one?
No.